Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome back. The whole schedule is out. It's Friday, May 16th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. He's all about the silver and black bets.
Go Raiders, dude. That's our team. Wow, you just put a hat on. Raiders hat. Man, is that Pete Carroll I'm looking at right here? That's our first official play that we took, 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? So what could go wrong? We're going to add to the card today. Hopefully lots of winners. Last year was not our best season for win totals. I think we went 3-3 on our officials, so no blood, basically. But every year, this is a fun conversation because I think it gives you a lay of the land on how you view these teams just from like a top level perspective, not just in player takes and all that sort of thing, but how could this go right? How could this go wrong? Where are the inefficiencies in the market? I know you've got some nice spreadsheets for us to look at today as well, so I'm excited.
I sprung on bets like in the middle of me doing the intro, put on my Las Vegas Raiders hat. And you might be one of those people saying, hey, I thought you were a Falcons fan, Kyle, and I am. But when a family member buys you this hat a couple years ago and you realize, oh yeah, I've never worn that hat. And then you and I place our early win total of an over. You can remind me what we got the line at, but our Raiders are trending in the right direction from, I believe we got it at 5.5 wins.
5.5, and then we talked about it on the show at 6.5, which was minus 125. I am seeing consensus like minus 150 in the markets for over 6.5. So, I mean,
Moving the lines.
no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal at all, considering I'm looking at their lines right now. They're not favored a ton, buddy. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 games. They are currently favored according to DraftKings Sportsbook.
5-win season incoming. Put that as a lock. I have a question about this hat you have. Why did somebody get you a Raiders hat?
Okay, so born in Atlanta, always been Atlanta-based, teams, Braves and Falcons have been my team. But I do have some connections of different teams. Like I have a lot of family members in Tennessee, so I have a lot of random Tennessee stuff. My mom worked for the same company for a long time, and he was the owner of the Royals. So we have a ton of Royals stuff.
Very cool. Very cool.
That I had growing up. And then she's done a couple of conferences with her work out in Las Vegas, and so she's like, "Hey, do you want a Raiders hat?" So I said yes. And Here we go. The Raiders get a bad rap. Their fans get a bad rap. But this is a new look team right now, and they're kind of fun and exciting. Like we've always been big Geno guys. We obviously love Bowers. Jack Besh is the greatest thing that's ever happened. So it sounds like a 6-win team.
Yeah. Hey, that's what we need. Don't worry. You don't have to make the playoffs. You don't have to win the Super Bowl. Like just win 6 games. That's all we need. It's so funny, man, when you think about some of these like range of outcomes on teams where like you're taking an under on a team that should be great, but like they could still win the Super Bowl if they win 11 games and make a run, right? They still go under their win total. Like that kind of stuff happens. So this market is definitely different than like the futures market for Super Bowl or MVP, where you're buying into like tail end outcomes happening, 99th percentile outcomes. This is just more median expectations for teams. So we'll talk about how to bet some of these. I have a couple plays that I like that are tied to overs or unders, but playing
locks,
them like
you said?
Yeah, locks. They're gold star locks. You can get these for $19.99 per month, 6 easy payments, guaranteed to win or your money back. I have some plays that I like that are like alternative ways to play if you like a team's over on their win total or an under for better prices. So we'll talk about some of that stuff today too. Very, very fun episode ahead.
I think win totals for me is I get exposure and I get to hone in on a couple of teams that normally I just don't care about. Like I don't care about the Raiders. In fact, last year, you and I did the exact opposite where we took their under and Antonio Pierce was probably our least favorite head coach in the NFL. They were like, man, this team is not set up very, very well. So you can change so much year to year based on the projections, and we'll walk through our projections in this win total spectacular. I think this is like our 4th year going through this, and every year it is quite an exercise to go through all 32 NFL teams. Some we will go a little bit faster through and just say, hey, we're not going to bet this team at all, and talk about different scenarios of what could happen. I get it that your team right now is just a lock for, 9 wins, 10 wins. If you're listening right now, you're looking at your schedule, and I'm in group texts. By the way, when the schedule is released, is there anything better than just being in a group text with the boys or the group text with your friends? It's like, hey, everybody's talking about what they see. It's a good time.
It is. I was telling my wife the other night, like, hey, listen, the Eagles have one of the toughest strengths of schedules this year. They had the easiest last year. I mean, this is a big delta. And she was asleep on the couch. So, yeah, you got to get in the text message with the boys. They actually care, and your friends. And also, shout out to all the NFL social media teams with their schedule release. It's always very fun. Some people are not huge fans of it. I think it's funny. I like it a lot. It's like the Chargers Super Bowl, every year with the schedule release.
The Chargers
it's very,
are
very
awesome.
Good. So, it's fun, man. It's a fun time of year in the calendar for the NFL. And as we always say, the NFL, they take control. We've got a major golf championship going on, NBA playoffs, and the NFL is like, no. Watch this with our schedule release, which has been going on for 7 days, basically, with all these little like previews. And then we finally get the whole thing. So, yeah, man, we finally got our week 17 correlations for best ball as well. So, good time in the NFL world.
This week in Fantasy Footballers world is Dynasty Week. So, Betz and I recorded a Dynasty podcast earlier this week about rookie range of outcomes. On the main show, we talked about a couple of different Dynasty topics, but we're doing a giveaway for Nico Collins, or as we call him on this podcast, Nico Ballins, a signed jersey. So if you go to footclangiveaway.com, you can be entered in. It's free to enter. Free. Let me just respond by say it's free to enter. And you can win a signed Nico Collins jersey, footclangiveaway.com. If you want to get all of our rankings, everything is updated in the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com. And we will continue to give some season-long props, some official season-long props. We've given a couple of those out. We talked about it last week. And if you're one of those people that you've been listening for a while and you're kind of asking yourself like, hey, what kind of content do you guys do? What else is it other than the podcast? Well, the thing that we spend the most time on is the Ultimate Draft Kit. And the thing that's included in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus is the DFS Pass. So all of our props and everything in season. When we get to August, you and I will get to talk all things DFS strategy and give some exclusive stuff. So ultimatedraftkit.com if you want to be a part of that. But how ready are you for this show? Because this is one of the big ones.
The pressure's on. We got to, last year, 3-3 isn't good enough, Kyle. We got to step it up here. So I'm nervous, but let's go.
Hello everybody, I am back.
All right, so we're going to walk through all 32 NFL teams. We'll go by division. And there's an article on the website if you want to look at some of the data and some of the conversation when we talk about schedule-adjusted wins. It's easy to go into a schedule and based on vibes alone say, about a 10-win team. Now, if you're really, really a good team, like the Ravens, the Bills, or the Chiefs, then you can do that. I am a fan of a team that pretty much every single year you can look at a schedule and go like, I think we can get 7 wins. I think we can get 8 wins. But there are so many other scenarios. And if you're a fan of a team, the Bears or the Panthers, the Saints, the Browns, then you are looking at a schedule and go like, man, I'm not favored in a ton of games. How's this going to work out? So from a top level down. We'll go team by team. Explain how we bet win totals, because it's not just simply like, oh, I like this line, or hey, look at the strength of schedule. Look at all the teams they played and what their records were last year. We actually don't look at that at all. We find that year to year, that's not a helpful statistic for strength of schedule. So what's our process for going through this?
Yeah, there's 10 factors I think that go into it when we decide whether or not to place a bet. Looking at the team in totality, whether it's the personnel in the depth chart, whether it's coaching changes, the health status of certain teams, like year to year team level health in the NFL is very hard to predict. There are teams that have terrible injury luck one season. The next year they come back and they're healthy and everything is fine. There's teams that have great injury luck. Teams that make runs to the playoffs and Super Bowl generally are very healthy. The Ravens, the Eagles last year. Sometimes things don't go your way the following year. So health status, and specifically looking at how pure a team ran in that department, is something we care about, because generally things regress to the mean. We talk about the strength of schedule, and then you look for, I think, some key metrics in terms of what's sticky year to year and what's not. Things like turnover ratio or turnover luck. How many of your own fumbles did you recover? Stuff like that. What was your record in one-score games? Because a field goal is nothing in the NFL, right? That could go one way or the other. 1 4th down conversion or not can change the game. So these small little things that sometimes aren't sticky year to year, you want to look at and ask yourself, how likely is that to regress? And then you put that all into one giant formula, and we get to a number and it says yes or no. But I think that's kind of what I look at for a lot of stuff. And then once I do all those things, then I go back and look at the schedule as far as the strengths of schedule. And you do a great job with this. Warren Sharp does a great job with this at Sharp Football Analysis, looking at not teams' records from the previous year, but their forecasted win totals. So obviously, if you look at the Patriots on your schedule, you're like, man, that team didn't win any games last year. What an easy path. Well, the market is saying they're going to be a lot better this year. So if you're using last year's numbers, it's probably a flawed process. You want to look at their projected win total. So all of those go into it. It's quite the decision whether or not you want to place one of these wagers.
Yeah, and there's different factors that we bring up. So Betz brought up injuries. We'll give you some data as we go through some of these teams. It's that is really important to me, because with football, there's so much chaos, because when we're statting out all these players, when we're looking at them as if everybody's playing all 17 games. We know that's not true. We also, in the past, we've used a lot of data about net rest advantage. So in other words, a team coming off the bye or a team on a short week. We'll mention that, but there's been some studies, including one recently from Sumer Sports, that basically said the gap has kind of closed. The NFL has gotten better and better at scheduling so that teams aren't completely laid out to dry. Now, the 49ers last year had one of the worst rest advantages. They were at a disadvantage, -22, and they paid for it, but they also saw the injuries kind of stack up for that team, and they only finished with 6 wins. So there's different factors. We weigh them differently. It's not just one thing. I care a lot about placement games. If you've heard me talk about it on this podcast before, it is so valuable that when you were looking at a singular number, like, okay, let's say, they have their win totals at 6.5, then wherever they finished in the division last year, there's 3 extra games in the schedule, and they play the 3rd place team or the 4th place team, like the Patriots. They have a 4th place schedule. So the games that they have this year are very different than the ones that the Jets have. For instance, the Jets play at Jacksonville, Denver, and Dallas, while the Patriots have at Tennessee, so worst team in the league, our Raiders, and the Giants. Those are very different opponents based on just where they finished in the division. So that can be the difference between going over or under your win total. So we'll talk about that as we go through this. I also have in front of us, my eyes went cross-eyed, Betz, but I looked at the lines from every single game this year from DraftKings Sportsbook. They put out all 271 games. They don't have a line for the Falcons and Dolphins, and I don't know why. And maybe it's just because of the Falcons and they're turds, and who knows. But we have all of the lines in front of us. So we'll also mention this team is favored in, this many games, and this is what goes on. So any other quick thoughts before we jump in?
I don't think so. Let's get to it.
All right. AFC East is where we're going to start and try to blitz through some stuff. But the Bills win total 11.5. We have the Dolphins 8.5. The Jets I've seen in a couple places, 5.5. I've seen 6 in some places. And then the Patriots, I'm interested to see on different sportsbook what they lay. Because I've seen some 7.5s, I've seen some 8.5s. It's just wild. It's jarring at first for me. You mentioned the Patriots. Like when I look at this team, the vibes are they're young. They don't have a lot of skill position players. They haven't for a while. They have a new coaching staff. And yet Warren Sharp says they have the second easiest schedule. So let's start here in the AFC East, and we can kind of work our way through. I think this is a really interesting division. The Bills always have a giant number. So at 11.5 in general, I'm always like, just take the under and just blindly take it. So where are you at with the Bills?
Yeah, the Bills are tricky because on one hand, they have a lot of signals that are like, how repeatable is what they just did? Specifically in the turnover margin. They were plus 24 last year in turnover margin. That was the highest mark since 2019 when New England was plus 21. So they were very, very fortunate in terms of fumble luck. They were number one in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball, meaning they recovered 84% of their own fumbles. Historically, you lose some more possessions, things don't go your way. You could lose out on that. They were also super pure in touchdown rate inside the red zone. 72% last year, was second behind only Baltimore. Just 1 year ago, they were 10 percentage points less, down at 63%. So they ran hot in a lot of metrics. And on defense, they were also number 3 in fumble recovery percentage. And they were number 2, in third down conversion rate allowed over expectation, which basically just means like they ran hot in the red zone, they ran hot on recoveries and turnovers, and they ran hot on third down. Historically, those things do not repeat. At the same time, they have a unicorn named Josh Allen playing quarterback. So I kind of find myself on both sides of the argument here that I think the number is solid. I think it's right. And they also have the 5th easiest strength of schedule, according to Warren Sharp. So there's a lot of signs saying like this probably will continue, but there's also some warning signs like maybe they don't win 13 or 14 games kind of thing. So I think the number is right. I would not hate anybody for playing under 11.5, especially at the number that's available right now. Plus 135 on MGM and DraftKings, I think is a pretty good price for this. Otherwise, for me, it's a stay away. There's some 12.5s out there at like minus 160. I personally would not touch that. So for me, if I'm playing it, it's the plus 135 or nothing.
The Bills really lucked out because their hardest games this year, like they're favored in all their games, which, is not normal. And the reason why they're favored is because the hardest games they have against the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Eagles, they're all at home.
Yeah.
Like, that's so rare for that to happen. So this is probably a team that I will just attack in a different market. It's also one of those teams that they end up figuring it out, apart from, a major injury to Josh Allen or something, but they usually figure it out in the second half. So the Bills, I usually like to bet to like win the AFC, which they haven't done, but win the AFC when we're like halfway through the season and somebody else has a better record than them. Those are the kind of things that they're just already priced up. All right, moving down with the Dolphins here, 8.5. The Dolphins are so hard, man, because when they play good teams, they don't do so well. They're 3-14 under Mike McDaniel against teams that are over 500 the last 3 years. This team also feels like if it falls apart, it goes really poorly. And we're heading into 2026, and this team is clean house. Like McDaniel's gone, and Tyreek's gone, and they're trying to figure it out. So what's your read on the Dolphins?
Yeah, they are insanely fragile, in my opinion. Like, Tua obviously has his issues with the concussion history. He's got to stay healthy. If he goes down, we saw last year, it's basically over. Weird vibes around Tyreek Hill, right? There's Jalen Ramsey trade talks. They did lose Javon Holland in free agency. Teron Armstead retired, one of their best offensive linemen, and the offensive line last year was already a train wreck. So to me, I'm not touching anything over-related on the Dolphins as far as that's concerned. Under's I think fine play, but you're paying a ton of juice on it. Minus 160 is what I'm seeing. So I would not play that. I'd look for more like an alternative market. Like, I don't know. You could probably find some crazy stuff out there as far as like worst record in the league, which sounds crazy, but you're going to get paid off when you're right kind of stuff. That it's an under or nothing, but the price is kind of already baked in. So I don't really have a play on Miami, but I certainly am not touching anything over-related for the reasons you mentioned.
They're in the wrong conference. Part of me wants to find a sneaky way to say like, oh, Dolphins make the playoffs or something. They're just it's just loaded here. And if they're not winning the division, which we would say they're not, then it's just really hard for me to see a path where this team gets 9 to 10 wins. And
They are, sorry to cut you off, they are minus 190 to miss the playoffs on DraftKings. Kind of tells you about how the market feels about them.
Yeah. So the Jets, I want to bring it up because we both are suckers for Fields, and their win total's at 5.5, and we think their defense is good enough. I have no idea about the play calling. I mean, it's a giant mystery of what they're going to do. Tanner Engstrom is their new OC, comes over from Detroit, and this team is short 2 pass catchers. That's I was looking at our projections. Mason Taylor right now is going to see 50 receptions, and they're going to be empty, and we're going to talk about him in best ball, and he's going to be a good best ball pick. But I think this team, if you think they're good enough, the over is at minus 160, and I think I lean in that direction, and my schedule adjusted wins have them at 5.9. But once again, I'm not paying the juice of minus 160. So what do you think about the Jets? Because I think 6 wins is on the table. I think their defense is good enough. I just don't want to pay that price.
Yeah, you also didn't really mention we have a first-time head coach here in Aaron Glenn. Historically, we're not huge fans of defensive hires at head coach. We'll see. You know, I like you said, I could see where Fields is serviceable. The offensive line is improved. They play a little bit better. They can run the football. And they play really great defense. And they kind of I'm not making a comparison as far as these coaches. Obviously, Mike Tomlin's his own, incredible coach. But they kind of Steeler it where they're nice little 8-9 season. Not bad for your first year in Glenn. That kind of vibe. But I don't see a ton of team level upside success on this roster. They're going to have to win with defense, and that's very tough to predict year over year. So for me, I'm kind of with you. It's a stay away. I will just note real quick on their opening schedule. It's one of the most difficult in the NFL. So we're going to learn a lot about Justin Fields in the first month of the season. They have 5 of their first 6 games are against teams last year that were top 10 in QBR allowed. You get the Steelers, the Bills, the Broncos, the Dolphins, the Buccaneers. It's tough, man. So it's a new scheme for Fields, not great weapons. I could see the offense really kind of struggling to open the season, and then you're asking yourself kind of, what is this team? So, man, now that I talk through it, maybe an under at plus money isn't the worst thing, but it's not on my short list of top plays. I'll say that.
Yeah, I can't do under 5.5. I think their defense is good enough.
Yeah.
But, now, the Patriots' last team here, and I do like the under. I'm seeing it right now for 8.5 wins at minus 105. This team started off at 7.5. There's a lot that has to go right. And I get that they have a lot of additions, that they're trending in the right direction from where they were last year. Totally on board with that. They do have a stretch from weeks 5, 6, and 7 where they have 3 straight road games. I just don't think you can fix the entire offense. This offense was 31st in yards per game, 32nd in passing yards per game. And yes, they bring in Josh McDaniels, who traditionally has done well when he's gone back to the Patriots early on and then eventually is head coach somewhere else. This team had the fewest plays of 15 plus yards, and they have a lot of changes here. I mean, a lot from head coach to what they did in the draft. They brought in Stephon Diggs. They paid a lot of money on the defensive line. I just think 8 wins is a massive jump. I see that their schedule right now, according to Warren Sharp, is the second easiest. And I mentioned some of those 4th place games, but I would be willing to pay the minus 105 for under 8.5 wins.
It's tough. I was kind of hoping that we could catch a over 6.5 line here at okay odds, and the market's kind of already on it. So I don't see a ton of opportunities with the Patriots. I disagree a little bit with you in that I think they can actually turn it around in a bigger way than most people realize. The coaching situation last year was not NFL caliber. And now you get Mike Vrabel, who, great motivator. His teams play hard for him. He knows what he's doing. The upgrade at coaching for this team is the biggest in the NFL. Josh McDaniels, we all think back to his days as a head coach with your Raiders. And it wasn't great. But whenever he's been an offensive coordinator, it's been very good. So Drake May gets an upgrade in play calling, and that the weapons are better. They had an unlimited amount of money to spend in free agency. They got Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, a couple other guys. Obviously improved the offensive line in the NFL draft as well. I could see a path where the Patriots take a decent step forward. They're kind of on the cusp of the playoffs, but then really next season is kind of oh, the Patriots might win this division and give the Bills, like I could see that conversation, but I'm with you that it's kind of already priced in. And so
yes,
I'm not taking under, but I'm having a tough time playing overs in this betting market. But as you all know, I love Drake May. And so like I'm kind of buying more into this team from a fantasy perspective than a win totals perspective.
I mean, I'm looking at their schedule. They basically need to go 500, I think, in their division, which I think is asking a lot. Let's say they're 2-4 in the division. They play the AFC North at Baltimore and at Cincinnati.
That's
just going to tell you right. That's brutal. They play at Tampa Bay. I mean, they do have some games against Atlanta and Carolina, which are winnable, but not like, not easy. And then their fourth place game. So I think if they get 500 in the division, then I can see them getting to 9 wins. I'm just willing to bet against them having that massive a change and if they're a 9-win team, they're close to making the playoffs. And I wonder if you could look up that market because I just don't see them as a playoff team. I think they're still they're close. They're trending in the right direction.
You're saying what are their odds to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
They're plus 135 to make the playoffs. They are, hold on, let me find. No. They are minus 165 to miss.
Okay. All right. Well, they're an interesting team, and I'm definitely rooting for Drake May as well. But let's take a quick break, and then we'll move on.
Back so soon? Oh no, what happened?
A little incident at the dog park. We gotta head to the vet.
Oh, not again. These bills.
We can use CashNet USA. We can apply in minutes, get a fast decision, and have the money in the account as soon as the same business day. All right, Cheddar, back in the car.
When you need money fast, be the hero. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times. See CashNetUSA.com for more details.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All right, we're moving on to the AFC North, which is the bloodbath division. Pretty much every single year, except for last year with the Browns, this division is arguably the hardest in the NFL. A couple years ago, I remember everybody went 500 in division. It's just like everybody's 3-3. That's just how it works. The Ravens are at 11.5. The Steelers, all right, are you seeing 8.5 or 9.5 in places?
I'm seeing 9.5.
Okay, so I'm seeing 8.5 on DK. I'm seeing 9.5 on others. So check out your sports book. I'm seeing both of them. I hate betting against Steelers because they've always proven us wrong. But if you see a 9.5 out there, I will take an under. We have the Bengals who are 8.5 and 9.5 in some places, and then the Browns at 4.5 start off at 5.5. It's bad, man. It's really bad, and they have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL. Let's start with the Ravens because 11.5 is a monster win total. I don't like playing the over. And this team was super healthy last year. So how are you approaching the Ravens?
Yeah, they had a historically good injury season, meaning didn't have a lot of players miss time because of injury. Aaron Schatz, who is over with FTN, does a lot of the DVOA work and stuff like that, came up with a metric, or at least uses a metric that Bill Barnwell of ESPN originally created. Adjusted games lost is kind of their metric and that they use. This was the lowest in adjusted games lost since the 2017 Falcons. So they ran insanely pure on injury luck, and unfortunately, you're already kind of seeing the other side of it. One of their defensive backs, not necessarily their best player, but a key piece of the rotation, Ardarius Washington tore his Achilles, unfortunately, during offseason training. So you're kind of already seeing that come back the other direction. Hopefully everybody else stays healthy, but it's hard to stay healthy and win the number of games that they have the last couple seasons. That said, this is a great front office. This is a great head coach and coaching staff. They've got the pieces on offense and defense to keep doing it. So I'm with you. I think it's a stay away, but it's hard to replicate that level of success in the NFL.
They are favored in 15 of 17 weeks. And a couple of those, when you start looking at them, you go, oh, well, they played the Browns. So they're like 12.5 point favorites in week 2, 11.5 point favorites, which is a lot right now. Like these look ahead lines, that's insane to be favored that much this early. Yeah, I'll just find other ways to play the Ravens, man. I feel like we always do with Lamar. We're going to play MVP. We're going to play, once again, hopefully they win the AFC. Maybe. Come on, Bills and Ravens. That's what we want. That's what I want.
You're calling for the downfall of the Chiefs?
I mean, I want it. Don't you?
Yeah, well, you saw the Super Bowl. I think it's already happened.
They're still just thinking about you and your Eagles.
Mahomes hasn't slept in months. He hasn't slept in months, dude.
All right, the Steelers. They're really good at making us feel dumb for doubting them every single year. Mike Tomlin's like, how dare you think? But right now, 8.5 wins. The under is at -130, and there's a chance that you could be playing quarterback this year for the Steelers, Bet. So what are we doing?
And that might be an upgrade. I can check it. Yeah, man, look, I took the under last year. Obviously, they drop kicked me in the face, but it was kind of the same exact argument, right? Where it was like, this quarterback play is going to be pretty spotty. They're going to have to win with great defense. They're going to have to kind of squeak into the playoffs with Mike Tomlin doing Mike Tomlin things, and they just keep doing that, right? So it's basically the same argument, but like last year was the exact same situation from their schedule perspective when you look at the strength. They opened the season last year with a pretty easy strength of schedule. We saw them get off to a nice start. And then they basically, tripped over their toes down the stretch and kind of faltered and obviously weren't really a threat at all in the playoffs. The same is kind of setting up here where down the stretch they get the Chargers, the Bengals, the Bears should be better this year, the Bills, the Ravens, Dolphins, whatever, the Lions, Browns, okay, whatever, and the Ravens again. So their end of season schedule is again brutal. So I'm kind of bookmarking this team to say, look, if they can get to, 3-1 or anything like close to that kind of in the first month and a half of the season, maybe I come in with a live under in season, but right now I'm not going to pay it just because I think the line is probably right. But let's just acknowledge the fact, like, who is playing quarterback for this team? And even if it is Aaron Rodgers, which it kind of feels like it's going to be, we've done this enough with Rodgers. So I will be looking for a live under in season.
Yes, I think that's a good call. The Steelers' defense is interesting because they have the allure and the names, and yet year to year, I think there's some issues of, how lucky they were on turnovers. Just year to year, that like they were worse than you realize, and yet some of the metrics make them look like they were still an elite unit. So, yeah, Steelers would definitely be a team that I don't hate the -130. I don't hate it just because you might get some Will Howard at some point as the quarterback. So, Bengals 9.5. The overs at -150. They don't play defense and they don't care. So, what are you doing?
Oh man, the Bengals, dude, this team. So obviously Trey Hendrickson is a massive piece of the defense. Still in the middle of a contract dispute. Warren Sharp put out the splits with Trey Hendrickson on and off the field. I mean, it is drastic. Like with him off the field, they're dead last in success rate, completion percentage allowed, EPA per pass attempt, passer rating allowed, and pressure rate. Dead last in all those things. When he's on the field, they're a top half of the league unit, which is a huge, huge difference. So clearly they need to get that figured out. At the same time, their first round draft pick, not currently in minicamp or OTAs or whatever is happening right now because of not agreeing to the contract as a first round guy. So like the contract issues lingering for this team, never ending cycle is still going on. I think over 9.5 is probably the right side because of how well Joe Burrow can play, because of their weapons in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But as you noted in some of our early best ball rankings discussions, Joe Burrow is probably going to regress in the touchdown department. They're probably going to regress a little bit in the overall like fortune that they had in some of those wins that they had down the stretch last year. But I'm not going to bet against Joe Burrow. I'm not going to bet against this offense that can put up those huge numbers. If I had to take a side, it'd be under, but it's not an official play for me.
The Browns are sitting at 4.5 wins. Just if you are new to win totals, that is embarrassingly low. Like it's not allowed to go lower than that. Put it that way. In the NFL, they are favored in just one game, and they have a really tough schedule. They open up with the Bengals, the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings. So, this team at some point will experiment at the quarterback position this year. They will get to their week 9 bye and say, okay, let's mix it up and let's see what happens. And they're pretty weak at wide receiver in terms of skill position players behind Jerry Jeudy. And if Jerry Jeudy's your one, that's still an issue. So any interest on daring to take an under, which I know you're always down for that, under 4.5 at plus 135.
Yeah, I think this is a play. You can also find under 5.5, which I'm going to take as my first play on FanDuel. It is minus 140, which I don't love, but like thinking about the team level approach, they are clearly having their eyes set on 2026 in the quarterback class. Like you're going to see Dylan Gabriel. You're going to see Shedeur Sanders if he makes the roster. You're going to see these guys get starts this year because this is where the team is headed, where you get to November, you get to December. That number one pick is very important, and I think they're going for it. Now, weird stuff happens in the NFL all the time, right? There's like another team that's terrible that you didn't expect to be bad, and they pull off a win or two here and there, but it's really hard to see 6 wins on this schedule when you think about the fact that they've got the second most difficult strength of schedule across the entire season. One of their 4th place games is against the 49ers. Like that's clearly not a gimme. They play the NFC North. You could lose all 4 of those games. We just talked about New England being better than we think. They play the AFC East. The Bills obviously are a very, very tough win. Their division is brutal. So you have a team that's like motivated to lose. You have clearly the worst quarterback situation in the league potentially here. And you've also got a lack of elite talent on the offensive side of the ball as far as playmakers. So I think it's all a recipe for this team to win 5 or less games. So for me on FanDuel, under 5.5 is a play.
If you want to ladder this thing, under 4.5 is plus 135. You mentioned under 5.5 is minus 140. And under 6.5 is only minus 220. I feel like that's not steep enough for this team. I mean, we hate laying that type of juice, but yeah, the Browns will be a team that's picking in the top 5. They traded, and they know that they have the Jaguars pick this next year. They're going to be a team that's focused on 2026, and that's okay. They're actually trending in the right direction as a team. All right, AFC South, always a tight division. We have the Texans at 9.5, the Jaguars and Colts at 7.5, and the Titans down there at 5.5. Any particular take on this division? Because I feel like the Colts and Jaguars are always in that mix of they could compete for the division. Last 2 years it's been the Texans, but they're also just stuck in this blah world of 7.5 that I hate touching those. So what any takes?
I hate this division because you always look at the strength of schedule for all these teams, and for the most part, it's pretty easy because they're playing each other and these teams are terrible, except for the Texans. So truthfully, like we can be quick here on this division. I don't have a strong take on really any of these teams. I'm interested in the under potentially on Houston because they do have one of the most difficult strength of schedules. They've got a lot of moving parts. Some rookies coming in. They're going to play at wide receiver. How good is C.J. Stroud? There's kind of a discussion on where's the truth. The offensive line, obviously, we know they changed coordinators. Like all these things are moving parts that it's really hard to diagnose. But at the same time, they've got one of the best pass rush units in the league. Their secondary is awesome. So I'm probably not going to take their under. We did last year and we just missed, unfortunately. But I think the line is right, and I think they should be favored to win this division. So I don't have a strong take on any of these teams, but I will tell you that for the Jaguars, like the upgrade as far as their scheme with Liam Cohen, obviously Travis Hunter is incredible. I do buy that Trevor Lawrence can have one of those seasons that you're like, wow, where did that come from? So for me, again, this is more of like a best ball fantasy team that I'll be buying into instead of win totals.
Yeah, I'm looking at our schedule adjusted wins. Once again, those are on the website if you want to look in article form. But like every single spot that I lean, the market's kind of reflecting that. So you mentioned the Texans at 9.5. We have them at 9 wins and the under's at minus 120. Same thing with the Jaguars. I would take their over, but it's already at minus 125. The Colts, another team, when we were talking about the Dolphins, of how things can change, a year from now, the Colts could clean house, and this could be a completely different team. I do like their third place schedule, though. It's at Pittsburgh, which isn't great, but Miami and Atlanta. And then Tennessee has a pretty good fourth place schedule, but I think we're worried about them and worried about what that team will be. The overs at -150 for them. So I think this is mostly a stay away division. And I don't mind placing a bet on the Jaguars to win the division if you get good enough odds for that. But I think it's kind of chalky to me. Like, I think the Texans are the best team, and it helps that they have a really good defense, and I think they'll bounce back on offense with new play caller Nick Caley. So, let's just move on from this division. Go to the AFC West. The Chiefs are at 11.5. I don't bet the Chiefs anymore. I just don't. I just get away from them and just say move on. Their first place games, though, this year are Baltimore, at Buffalo, which is awesome, and Detroit. So they always have the fun games, the ones that are on television. According to Warren Sharp, they are the first team in NFL history to receive 5 primetime games in the first 8 weeks of the season. So we're going to get used to seeing them. They start the season in Brazil against the Chargers. I'm sure the Chargers will do just fine traveling. Just fine. They always come through.
Yeah, man, the Chiefs are tough.
I don't bet the Chargers either.
They've lost their privilege. The Chiefs are tough because a lot of the stuff that you look at, they should regress. Like, they were incredible in one-score games. Generally speaking, that's not sticky year to year, but when you have one of the best real-life quarterbacks in the league and you have probably the best head coach in the league, like, those things kind of just happen for those types of teams. They also dealt with some injuries last year that were pretty significant, right? Like, Rashee Rice was a huge loss. They'll get him back. Hollywood Brown, I know that you don't love, but I think he's an above average to pretty good wide receiver 3 for your team. So for me, like, I think I would lean to the over if I had to pick one because of those situations. But their schedule is pretty tough, like you mentioned, and it's hard to win 12 plus games in the NFL year over year. So for me, it's more of a stay away than anything else. But I'm definitely not taking under.
The Broncos are interesting. You have in here that they were 1-6 in one-score games. It didn't feel that way, like, just from vibes alone of like, man, how did this team get away with stuff? But right now, to make the playoffs, it's -110 on both sides. Their line is at 9.5, -110 on both sides. I feel like this team ran pure with Bo Nix, and it's hard to bet against him and the fact that they've added a couple of weapons, but I just don't think that they can compete with the Chiefs and the Chargers in this division. But maybe I'm discounting how good their defense is. So do you have any Broncos takes?
I think this line is spot on, which is not a fun take, but that's how I feel. They overcame a lot with the Russell Wilson contract. They lost draft picks because of Sean Payton. Like, you hit on a rookie quarterback and you hit on some other rookies on the defensive side of the ball. You can overcome these things pretty quickly, and we saw it last year. The market is already adjusted, I think, enough, because last year, if you remember, they were a 5.5 win total team. They clearly exceeded that by a wide margin, and now they're projected for 4 more wins, which in a median outcome market is actually a ton. So I think the market has caught up to where the Broncos are. They've got one of the best defenses in the league. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the league. So there's a lot pointing in the Broncos' direction as far as positive outlook here. But like you said, the division is pretty brutal outside of playing the Raiders, who are good. I think we'll be good, but they're not the Chiefs, right? Like, the Chiefs, the Chargers, it's tough. And because they had a successful season last year, now they get not penalized, but their schedule as far as who they play, their placement games are pretty tough. 2 of the 3 against Cincinnati and Green Bay. So I think it's a stay away. I think it's a pretty good line.
Dude, I was looking at that earlier. Like, that's not a gift for being a third place team and making the playoffs, that you get handed those teams. So we've already talked about the Raiders. We bet it at 5.5. It's at 6.5 right now. The over's at -145. Just to give you a couple of stats of how bad this team was last year. They were the worst running game in the NFL. They had the lowest expected points added per rush of any team over the last 5 years. It was about as bad as you can get, and then you add somebody like Ashton Genty. They've improved the offensive line. Chip Kelly, if you know the name Chip Kelly, you know about up-tempo offense. He's talked a lot that this is going to look very different, And last year when he was at Ohio State, it was not the up-tempo, let's get as many plays per game. So don't just think about the Raiders now as like, oh, this is going to be a high-flying offense. I do think that it's just going to be a much better run team organization. I think Geno's efficient. You and I both like Geno a lot. So if you wanted some long shot like Raiders make the playoffs, it's at plus 340 right now. I don't think that's insane, but we got in early, and their fourth place schedule is the Browns, at the Patriots, and the Bears. So there's a reason why we went in.
Yep. I think at this point, I wouldn't touch it anymore, especially with the juice. So AFC, largely boring for us. Browns under 5.5 is really the only one that I have, other than the Raiders, which we've already given out. So that's it.
Okay. By the way, Betz is not telling me ahead of time what the plays are, and so it was nice that I kind of led into that Browns, and I was feeling that, but I know we'll have some differences in a second. So let's take a quick break and get to the NFC.
NetCredit is here to say yes to a personal loan or line of credit when other lenders say no. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. If approved, applications are typically funded the next business day or sooner. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partner. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
This season, let your shoes do the talking. Designer Shoe Warehouse is packed with fresh styles that speak to your whole vibe without saying a word. From cool sneakers that look good with everything, to easy sandals you'll want to wear on repeat, DSW has you covered. Find a shoe for every you, from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, and more. Head to your DSW store or visit dsw.com today.
Did you like that, Betz, during the ad break?
Yeah, you cracked up in a cold one.
No, man. It's a little cherry limeade Waterloo sparkling water. Not a sponsor, but a big fan.
But could be a sponsor.
Yeah, I needed it. I needed to open one. People do ask all the time. I get the question like, hey, why don't you guys just drink on air? It's like, we record at like 1 p.m. Like, I don't really want to have a beer at 1 o'clock while I'm working.
God, Kyle, you're so responsible.
Sorry, I was on the clock. Hopefully people don't just go to their jobs at 1 o'clock and say, you know what, I need to open up a cold one so Bob from accounting can leave me alone.
If you see a lot of errors in the UDK when Kyle's work, you'll understand why.
Yeah. I bet the accounting department is just wild. They're just a crazy bunch.
Oh, absolutely.
Not for us. We don't have an HR department. It doesn't exist. All right, NFC East. These teams all suck. You want to move on?
Yep. No, go ahead. You give me your thoughts here, because I've got some thoughts.
I mean, I'm going to take an under blindly on anybody at 11.5, but there's a lot of reasons to take the under for the Philadelphia Eagles. Strength of schedule wise, you brought it up earlier. Your wife fell asleep to it. It's rough, man. It's going to be very, very different. And looking over the last 5 years, if you have an 11 win total and you just blindly bet it, you've made money on it. Okay, it hasn't been perfect, but I also think this team had the right set of variants of their key players. Other than A.J. Brown having that little blip, I know Dallas Goedert had a little bit of an issue. Devonta Freeman had like a game or two. They were relatively... Did I say Devonta Freeman? Devonta Smith?
You did.
Falcons great. Devonta Freeman making an appearance. They were pretty healthy, man. And I year to year, that's usually something I would bet against.
Yeah, this is tough because in my heart, I hate this. In my head, this is a good bet. Yeah, under 11.5 is one of the ones I have. I found minus 105 for the best price on this. If you have access to Bet365 or Fanatics, it's like minus 120 some places, minus 130 others. So I would snag this while you can if you have access to those books. You mentioned it. It's tough to win 12 plus games in back-to-back years. This team also is coming off of, like you said, one of the healthier seasons. We are already on the Saquon under because of how historic that performance was. The defense was insane last year with how well they played under Vic Fangio. I think they'll still be very good, but they lose Josh Sweat. They lose a leader in Darius Slay. They also hit on a ton of cheap pieces which generally is a recipe for success in the NFL. Both cornerbacks, first and second round picks, were incredible. They found Zach Bond for pennies, turned into an all-pro. Now they had to pay him. So they basically just bat 1,000 last year on all the things you needed to have happen, that it's basically just a bet against natural regression that this team could still be awesome and win 11 games and win a playoff game or two, but it's hard to repeat in the NFL. It's hard to play deep into February and then do it all over again with the luck that they had as far as their health. So sadly, I'm with you. And we do have to acknowledge they lose another play caller for Jalen Hurts. Have you seen this list? It is
all the way back to Alabama.
Like, Jalen Hurts, credit to this dude, because he just keeps doing it with a new play caller every single year, going back to Alabama and obviously Oklahoma, and then in the NFL, he just keeps losing his play caller, and he's still awesome. So want to give Jalen Hurts his flowers here. Obviously, I'm a huge fan and clearly not biased, but I will be taking under 11.5.
I mean, the matchups this year are really tough when you look at NFC North, which is a gauntlet to go through, AFC West, and then their first place games are the Rams, at Tampa Bay, and at Buffalo. So I think all that just adds up to say I would take the under. Our schedule adjusted wins have them under 11, so I'm just going to lean that way. So, all right, we're on the same page, 2 for 2 on these. Commanders, I lean under right now. It's at 9.5. I don't feel great about that. Right now, the under is at plus 105.
Yeah, the Commanders are tough. Like, obviously, you can see a path where Daniels takes another step in year 2, and they've got the rookie contract for a quarterback, and they were able to spend in free agency a little bit, and like you kind of paint a picture where it's like, okay, here we go. But the other side of the coin is rookie quarterbacks sometimes take a step back and fall back down to earth a little bit. We saw that with CJ Stroud last year. So the market is definitely excited about the Commanders, and I obviously understand it. They're tied with the Chiefs for the most primetime games in the league, which tells you a lot about how the market feels. But whenever that happens, I don't want to just like follow the hype, although I do see a world where it exists. So for me, like if I'm going to play anything Commanders related, like maybe it's like Jane Daniels for MVP or something like that. But for me, I'm going to stay away. If I had to play a side, it'd be under. I think the median outcome here, this line is pretty spot on.
The Cowboys are a little fishy to me. Their line's at 7.5. And there's a slight lean to the over in my schedule adjusted. It's currently in the books at minus 130, so it's kind of reflected there. But I'm going through their schedule, and they are favored in just 6 games. And you look down the stretch, they're not favored in weeks 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. I want to be able to say that this is a team with Dak where there is continuity with Brian Schottenheimer as a play caller, and they add George Pickens, but I can't just look back at the Cowboys teams from 3 or 4 years ago and say, oh yeah, this team can get to double-digit wins, or this team can get to 9 wins. Can they get to 8 wins? What's your take on the Cowboys?
This one's tough, and they're actually a really good example of like how year over year, when you talk about teams and their defense, you know, teams can regress and chaos can happen. Like a couple years ago, this was one of the best defenses in the league, and it was like, man, you don't want to play the Cowboys defense. Then they have major injuries, like Micah Parsons missed time, of course, and Trayvon Diggs had a serious knee injury and all these things. Dryden Bland didn't have, 8 pick sixes or whatever it was the year prior. So the defense regressed a little bit. And then the offense, obviously, with injuries to Dak and CeeDee Lamb with the shoulder injury, and their run game was kind of sputtering for the first part of the year. Like, there was a lot of issues with this team. The market has come down quite a bit. This was I think 9.5 or 10.5 win team in the projections last year for win totals. We were on their under. I feel like this is kind of right. And I think the way that I'm going to play this with maybe like some futures type stuff is like Dak to lead the league in passing at a crazy long price, or just Cowboy stacks and best ball, because I think this defense is going to struggle again this year. And when you look at the personnel, we all kind of made fun of Mike McCarthy a couple years ago when he was talking about, got to rest our defense, we got to run the ball more. And you and I were like, wait a minute, look at the personnel. Like, don't you think the strength of this offense is CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott? They're just going to throw the heck out of the football. And you look at the running backs and the situation here, and it feels very similar. So I think this could be a wild shootout team, a lot of high-scoring games that I'd almost like more rather play it in that range of outcomes aspect rather than trying to say this could be an 8-win team, because I could see this going both directions. And, I could see it being terrible. I could also see this team being like, oh, they won 9 games and they kind of snuck in the playoffs. So yeah, I don't have a strong take on their win total, but I'm in on like some of those longer shot longer odd markets.
Oh, I love that, man. So that fits perfectly with, I was writing up the Cowboys in our best ball primer. Spoiler. Other than CD, there's just this massive gap. And Dak is sitting there at QB 15. And I know I'm kind of going into best ball world, but this is a good way for us to talk about teams and then say, okay, what are the other ways that we can have access? Maybe it's not the win totals market. And I think that is a great way to look at it because Dak just feels like an easy backdoor stack. Made sure to rhyme that there. But
nailed it.
Yeah, best ball primer bets, I don't know if you know, comes out in a couple of weeks.
I need to get to work on that.
I think you and I, once we get through some of our other blurbs, we're going to devote ourselves fully to that. We'll finish the win totals. But yeah, I just got excited because I was researching the team and I loved your conclusion with that. The Giants is at 5.5. We might differ on this. I don't mind the over at plus 110. It's a tough schedule. It's one of the toughest in the league. They start off with 2 road games against Washington and Dallas. Russ is the quarterback. Russ is annoying. Russ also sometimes annoyingly wins. And eventually we'll probably see some Jackson Dart. But I currently lean that there's value in the over, which is my way of being a wimp and saying, I don't know if I would bet it, but there's value.
I'm definitely not taking over. I like under. I'm going to go against your schedule adjusted wins, which historically has been a losing strategy. But the best line I can find was minus 125 on Caesars and Fanatics. When you look at the opening schedule, their past defenses that they face, at least on paper, by far the most difficult in the NFL. So you ask yourself, like, how soon do we see Jackson Dart? Listen to the opening schedule. They get the Commanders, Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Chargers. Okay, the Saints, not that intimidating, but the Eagles twice and the Broncos in the first 8 weeks. And then week 9, they get the Niners, and we think they're going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. So at some point in the first 2 months of the year, there's going to be the media, the fan base, all saying, when are we seeing Jackson Dart? Because on paper, to me, this looks like a, 2-5, 2-6 type of start. And at that point, people are going to say, look, let's start looking to the future. You're going to hear people talking about Brian Daboll's job. So that's how I see this going personally. And then anything can happen from that point forward, right? Jackson Dart could be awesome or terrible. We don't know. They have still question marks in the offensive line. If Malik Neighbors happens to go down, it's over. Like the skill group is not great. So that's where I'm at. That said, This is one of the best front fours in football. So like I could see chaos happening where Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence are just awesome, and Kayvon Thibodeau is like your third pass rusher is cheating, it feels like. They did sign Javon Holland to shore up the safety market. Like, I get it where you're coming from, but man, the opening schedule is so brutal. It's going to be tough to come back from that. So I think under 5.5 for me is a play. And like I said, best price I could find was minus 125 on Caesars and Fanatics.
Dude, their schedule is so unbalanced. It's really tough at the beginning. Then they have those games you mentioned, Eagles, Broncos, Eagles. The very end, so they have a week 14 bye, which seems not fair. And then 3 of the last 4 are at home. It's just a weird schedule if you're a Giants fan. But the front 4 was actually my crux of my argument of like, I think this defense is good enough for them to hang in there, not be elite. But yeah, value play of the week, the Giants. What could go wrong for me?
Can't do it.
That's fine. I don't care. I don't care about the Giants. NFC North. I am sorry, but your schedules look so brutal. Just so hard for all of these teams. Lions at 10.5, Packers at 9.5, Vikings at 8.5, disrespected, a team that had 14 wins this past year, and the Bears at 8.5. The Bears at 8.5. I feel like I've read this story before, Betz.
The Bears, man. They're the hotness. Okay, so let's start with what I think is the most interesting team to talk about in this division. And it's like the warning signs on the Lions, right? Like, now on one end of the argument, this was like arguably the most affected team by injury on the defensive side of the ball, like historically. And they were still able to overcome it thanks to Aaron Glenn basically blitzing on every play and creating chaos. But on the offensive side of the ball, they were one of the healthiest teams. So I think you could see that kind of balance out somewhere in the middle. they lose both their offensive coordinator, clearly one of the best play callers in the league, and Ben Johnson. They lose their defensive coordinator, now the head coach of the Jets. So Dan Campbell, this is going to be a Dan Campbell season if they're going to win 11 games to go over this total. I personally like under, which is terrifying based off the roster. But you look at the strength of schedule, it's one of the most difficult in the league. It's the third hardest. You look at how fortunate they were last year in those one-score games. You look at the way Jared Goff played as far as his efficiency. Does that repeat? Probably not. We have a stat here that over the last decade, there's been 52 quarterbacks that had 30-plus pass touchdowns and a 5.5% or higher touchdown rate. Last year, Jared Goff had 37 with a 6.9%. 83% of those in history have regressed the following year. And it's not hard to paint a picture where that happens because Ben Johnson is gone. So that's a concern for me. And their third down conversion rate over expectation has gotten better and better and better each year. 1.3%, 2.1%, and then all the way up to 5.1%. If they're just a little worse on third down, if some of those fourth downs don't go their way, this offense and this team probably don't win the way that they did, where they had to come back in a ton of games last year. They were 7-2 in one-score games, and they won 82% of the games that they were trailing. That was second best in the league. So you just start to knock off like a couple wins from those situations, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, they won 10 games. It's still a good season, but maybe they're not making a Super Bowl run. Is kind of how I envision this team. They also played 3 games total outside last year. We know Jared Goff historically better in a controlled environment. They have 7 outdoor games this year. So for me, I think under is a play. The best market I found for this is plus 100, even money on FanDuel. You can also take them if you want to get kind of a little crazy here to miss the playoffs, which sounds absurd, but to miss the playoffs is plus 210 on ESPN Bet.
Yeah, no, I'm there. They're favored in just 12 games this year. You mentioned the indoor-outdoor stuff. My schedule just to wins have them at 9.8, which leans towards the under. And if you can get them at even money, that's great. It's nothing against Lions fans, and some of them will be like, "Dude, really? It's a tough division, man. It's tough to repeat year over year." And the first place games against Tampa Bay, at the Rams, and at the Chiefs are not a cakewalk at all. I just think they're right there with the Vikings and the Packers. And they're like, I definitely see them as the favorite. I could see them being a 10-win team. I could see the Packers getting to 9-10 wins. And I think the Vikings are still disrespected here. So any other thoughts on this division?
That's the only one that stuck out to me. Where are you at the Bears? I mean, everyone loves the Bears again. Are we doing this?
I don't love paying the prices in best ball. I think that their divisional matchups against NFC East and the AFC North are not easy. They draw a 4th place game at San Francisco, which is just terrible. Even though, wasn't it a couple years ago, Justin Fields beat our boy Trey Lance in the rain?
That's right. I think that was week 2 game, maybe, off the top of my head.
I think their line's fine at 8.5, and I lean towards the under just because I'm a pessimist about them. But I think this division is priced right. It's priced in a way where these teams all are going to be hovering around 8-9 wins. So, all right, NFC South. What could go wrong here? The Buccaneers at 9.5. The Atlanta Falcons sitting at a scintillating 7.5 wins. Carolina at 6.5. Saints 6.5. I'm seeing 5.5 in some places. I've bet against the Buccaneers a couple years in terms of regression, and it hasn't worked with Baker Mayfield. However, did you know Baker Mayfield was 0-2 last year against the Atlanta Falcons?
I mean, you can't walk into that building and expect to come out with a victory. That was the highlight of Kirk Cousins' season. Swag surfing on Thursday Night Football.
I was there, man. It was amazing. That was one of my favorite nights of being a fan, and it was very short-lived. Swag surfing with Kirk. I do like a couple teams overs here. So I like the Saints under. I don't mind the Panthers over, and I can see the Falcons over. So are you in on any of those plays?
Oh my goodness, the Falcons over. You're asking for pain, my friend. The reason that I think you're in on that is because they've got the 4th easiest schedule in the league because this division is generally not very good.
That's why we had the first easiest last year.
That's right. As far as the Saints, I'm with you. Unfortunately, it is very juicy, so that's the only consideration I have on that I'm hesitant to pay the price. But on the Bucs front, I don't know, man. Their third down conversion rate over expected went from 3.1% in 2023 to 11.3% last year. And you think about Baker Mayfield's touchdown rate, career high, it's probably, and that was with Evans missing time and Godwin missing half the season. Like, that doesn't feel like that's sustainable. And now you lose Liam Cohen. So I'm having a tough time on that success replicating, but I'm not going to take an under on 9.5. I think it's just a good line, and they should be favored to win this division. But otherwise, I think all these numbers are pretty fair. The only one that I have interest in is, like I said, the under 6.5 on the Saints.
The Buccaneers are favored in 11 of their games. So when I see it a 9.5 line, I go, okay, that feels about right. The Falcons, weird enough, it's their 6th straight year opening the season at home. They've only won one of those games at home. So yeah, that place is rocking. It's ready for the season, and nobody cares. Everybody just waltzes right in Mercedes-Benz and just says, you guys suck. We're a fun fantasy team, though.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
So I lean, our adjusted wins lean towards the over, but I'm not telling anybody to make this bet. Don't bet on the Falcons. Don't do it. All right, last division, NFC West. It looks strange when you compare this division to any other division because the 4th place team is projected for the most wins here at 10.5. They have the easiest schedule. The 49ers are a good team. And if you look historically with Kyle Shanahan, when his teams have bottomed out, they've been really, really bad. Last year was 6 wins. And then the next year they end up being an 11 or 12 win team. So it's the 49ers at 10.5, the Rams solid at 9.5, the Cardinals at 8.5, and the Seahawks are now down at 7.5 in the win total. So what do you like in this division?
I'm in on the Niners in a big way. Last year, I was pretty out in this market, and that proved to be one of those things where we said, look, they just ran so pure that they went all the way in that playoff run, but then they had a ton of kind of injury concerns that popped up this year. They were the most affected team by injury in the NFL. Obviously, the Christian McCaffrey thing. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL. We had their left tackle Trent Williams miss time. Just the list goes on and on. Tre'Davious Ward had that tragic issue with his daughter, unfortunately. Like, their all-pro safety missed time. Like, it was just a disaster on the offensive and defense side of the ball from an injury perspective. So I think that will swing back in their favor. Then you look at the schedule. By far, easiest in the NFL. So they've got those two things working in their favor. Last year, they had a historic net rest differential working against them. That's now balanced out. So those three things are working on their favor. So I just think it's a good time to buy back in on the Niners. The way I will be doing that is, instead of playing their over 10.5, which is, it's okay at plus money, I would rather just take them to win the division, which I found plus 170 on FanDuel, plus 175 on Fanatics. Like, I'd just rather play that. It's a better number. If you think they're going to win 11 games, 12 games, just give me the division. I also think placing a Brock Purdy MVP ticket is another way to buy in to this team, which is 30-1 on DraftKings. It wasn't that long ago that late in the season, the odds were in favor of Brock Purdy winning MVP, and then they just flubbed it away on that primetime game against the Ravens, and Lamar won it. So he's already been in the conversation before. If this team can win 12 games, 13 games, and make a run, I think that's the way I'll play it. So I'll play Brock Purdy MVP at 30-1, and then the Niners to win the division at plus 175.
You're very smart, because I need to look historically, but like, a quarterback on a team that's projected for 10, 11 wins, have they ever been this low in odds before? Like, he's below Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. There's some other guys that I like above him, like Herbert and, Jalen Hurts, but Purdy's at 30-1. Can we make that official? I mean, it's a fun sprinkle, right? If it goes wrong, we can say, hey, we tried.
Just give up. No, the way that we do these awards markets, and we'll have an awards show, but the way that we do these is like, you take a couple and you just kind of let that be the start of your portfolio, but you don't have to just ride it out through the season. You adjust and you can place a new bet in season when you get new information and all those things. So getting a 30-1 ticket now feels great, because it feels like this is going to head in our direction based off of the schedule and the health, luck, and all those sort of things. So I guess I'm a huge Niners fan this year.
I did want to just bring up with the Cardinals, if you look through their lines right now, even the games that they're not favored in, they're almost all by a field goal or less. So they're going to be an interesting competitive team. Their defense is definitely taken a step forward from where it was a couple years ago where they were just a punching bag. They went all defense in the NFL draft to try to improve that front. So at 8.5, I think it's literally dead on with what I have in schedule adjusted, but I wanted to point them out. And the Seahawks are a sneaky team to be really, really bad. That's like what I want to say is like the bottom could just fall out where Cooper Kupp's done, Darnold's not good, Ken Walker, is going to be a free agent after this year, and they just say, hey, we're moving on, and the entire identity of this team shifts. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's different markets where you can say like least wins, and I think at the end of the day, we would say it's going to be probably the Saints or the Browns, Giants, Titans, those kind of teams. But fewest wins right now, you can get the Seahawks at 40-1 odds, and I think that one's kind of interesting.
I've placed worse bets in my life, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you have. All right, so just give us a recap of the ones that you would say your officials.
Yes, I'll be playing the Giants under 5.5 minus 125, Fanatics and Caesars. The Eagles under 11.5 minus 105 on Bet365 and Fanatics. The Browns under 5.5 minus 140 on FanDuel. The Lions under 10.5 even money on FanDuel or to miss the playoffs at plus 210 on ESPN Bet. And then my favorites, the Niners to win the NFC West at plus 175 on Fanatics. And Brock Purdy for MVP at 30-1 on DraftKings.
All right, so just to be clear, Betz is rooting for everybody in the NFL to have zero fun this year, right? Just pure unders. Nothing good can happen except if Brock Purdy just kills it.
That's our guy.
Okay, I'm cool with that. He's probably going to get paid right now. Like somebody's listening to this and the time's up right now that he gets an extension. That's going to do it for this episode, Betz. We still have a lot of best ball content coming up. Next week, we're going to be talking about best ball edges and teasing some of the rankings and primer that they get to have in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. To everyone, to have a good weekend.
Yeah, everybody should have an incredible weekend. Don't just have a good weekend. Have an incredible one. Yeah, man, I'm excited. These next 2 weeks are fun because we put all this content and effort into the Ultimate Draft Kit. We are 2 weeks away, my friend, from June 1st. So let's go. Hope you guys are excited. It's going to be a great summer. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
I've never felt like this before. It's like you just get me. I feel like my true self with you. Does that sound crazy? And it doesn't hurt that you're gorgeous. Okay, that's it. I'm taking you home with me. I mean, you can't find shoes this good just anywhere. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at your DSW store or DSW.com.